Hello, you're listening to Overwhelm is Optional. Hello, I just wanted to pop in before we get on to this week's really lovely episode with the amazing Jennifer Wheeler, who is a professional career coach, and just let you know that I'm going to be doing a live masterclass on the 17th of February. It's called the Time for You Masterclass. It's designed to help you create time for yourself so that you can be happier and nicer to be around. And your dog will thank you and your partner will thank you. So do go and check it out. It's at heidimark.co.uk/time for you. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. And I have an amazing guest for me this week. I'm so privileged and delighted to bring to you Jennifer Wheeler. Jennifer Wheeler is a qualified experienced career advisor and coach. And I have noticed within my community of people that often once you get through the overwhelm, you want to go, I need to change my career, actually. But then there comes overwhelm and fear, because when we make big changes, that can push us back into the overwhelm. So I really wanted to get Jen on an episode to talk you through. Oh, she has so much experience and knowledge and wisdom in this sector. So I'm just going to read you her bio to give you a bit of background, and then I'm going to get straight into my first question, which we know and love. So Jen's background is in the technology centre, building and delivering teams, creating career paths within companies, helping individuals build rewarding careers, and working in tech startups, helping them to engage, develop and retain teams. And really interestingly, and this is one of the things I love about Jen, is she's also got this amazing other business going on where she lives on a farm in Wales with her husband Phil, 2 dogs, 3 chickens and 7 cows. I think there might be some pigs in there somewhere. They have 3 holiday cottages, which were recognised by the Independent newspaper as one of the top 10 rural cottage getaways. So that's building a business. So all of you entrepreneurial people out there, as well as you who are looking to change career, this is going to be a really helpful, relevant and inspiring episode for you. I know that. So welcome, Jen. It's such a delight to have you here.
Oh, it's so lovely to see you, Heidi, and thank you very much indeed for welcoming me onto your podcast. I've just so enjoyed listening to the previous podcast. So I was really chuffed. Thanks for asking me along.
So I'm going to start off with the question I always start with. Tell me about your adventures in overwhelm.
Wow. I was thinking, when you first posed me this question, I was thinking back to when it actually started, and I think the overwhelm started for me in a way that impacted my life to a point where I knew I had to do something about it. It was probably back in 2014, which for me feels like yesterday, but for a lot of people it was over a decade ago. But I met Phil, my husband, in 2012, and we both decided we wanted to do something else. We were both on the corporate ladder in Surrey, London area, and we decided that we were going to reinvent ourselves and move to Wales. And we had to sell 2 houses. Phil had applied for redundancy. I was working from home. We had and we arrived in Wales at this hideous farm that was run down. It was hissing with rain. It was in the middle of winter, and then we started trying to build, to do all things. I'd started my own business, and we had the build project, and Phil was working away during the week. And what it's like when you think you dive into these things and it's all going to be fine, and then suddenly I realized, no, it's not actually that fine, and started getting, quivery, slight panic attacks, realizing that actually there was so much going on. And I think having been, on my own a lot of the time during the week, that didn't help. I think that sort of escalated things a bit. So yeah, it was, having a complete mare, and money got tighter as the project went over. Mum was bad with dementia. So all in all, things were pretty crap, I think, for a technical term. So, I actually started Googling, and I came across the big American guy, Tony Robbins, and a few others, and they were talking about positive thinking and and making your life better and things. So I was to be found at about 6 a.m. in the morning, stomping around fields in Wales, shouting out these affirmations to a very bemused beagle, Basset, and probably local farmers. Actually, they probably thought I was a complete nutcase. So I really, just invested in going to events. I got a coach through Tony. I really was out to get this sorted. It got better. I think in the short term, at least, it gave me some sense of purpose that I was trying to deal with it, and it sort of lessened.
And he's a really inspiring guy, isn't he? I mean, he has impacted so many people.
Yeah. I mean, he really has. And some of his techniques are brilliant, but and they did. Some of them were very effective. And going to his events, there's 13,000 people all jumping around doing the thing.
They're high energy, aren't they?
Massively, yes. It's like sleep deprivation and things. But the fact that Bill was with me on the journey, and he very kindly bought into the whole thing, and it worked well for a while. We had some great tools. We weren't a lot, but we were also quite exhausted.
Oh, okay.
So I think you'd sort of go in peaks and troughs. You think, right, I'm going to get organised, get everything. You got your plan. I know what I'm doing, and then you start building your plan, and then other things start going on top, and that mix up your plan, and then your priorities go out the window because something else comes up, bites you in the arse, and then everything falls apart. So I just found it wasn't a repeatable, long-term solution that was perpetually fulfilling. Really, it
sounds quite exhausting. It sounds like it's very up and very energetic.
Yes,
but maybe it sounds like something was off for you.
Yeah, I think we had some really good fun with it, and there are aspects of the techniques that I use now. I'm now qualified coach in the career sector, so I understand the techniques and things, but it's not fulfilling, and it's not successful all of the time. So anyway, and so I read lots, I did lots of studying, we went to the States, we trained as coaches, and I just was really, I thought, well, there's got to be there's got to be a better way. And that's when I started Googling, and I found you actually, and you opened up a whole new avenue of opportunity of looking things in a more fulfilling, expansive, positive way. And it's really, I felt really, really helped. And it's something that I now, work into, how I work with people when I coach them, because the techniques are absolutely spot on. So you've always got somewhere to go with this, with the techniques that we use. We've always got somewhere to go to actually bring you back down in order to be able to cope better. Right.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I'm wondering whether, first to me, there's times, if I look back over my life, there's times when I thought, yeah, that's the answer, and that's really worked, and it's worked for a bit and then not worked, and then and I also think that different things work for different people, and we don't always acknowledge that. We kind of think they ought to work for us. But also, I guess for me, where I'm coming from always is, what resonates with you? What I believe really strongly, that you actually already have everything you need. You just disconnected from it. And that when we anything that reconnects you to yourself. So obviously I'm talking about listening to your body, connecting to your heart, controlling your attention, saying, yeah, that's not for me at the moment because that's not helpful. And it's to me, it's just what works for you. Is it stuff's either working for you or it's not? And I think we can get very fixated, can't we, on, this person should work for me.
Yes. And I also think that very few of us often trust ourselves. Quite a few people that I ask now, well, what do you think? And people go, oh, no, I've got to look it up. And there's a prescriptive, and actually, I think one of the first conversations we ever had, you asked how I feel, and I said, well, no, there's got to be someone's got to tell me how to
yes.
rather than listening to yourself.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I noticed that even, with my own journey, because it is this constant onion of nonsense, isn't it? Peeling off a bit more nonsense, where we just don't believe that we have wisdom inside us.
Yes.
It's just looking outside all the time. Can I just check? Can I just check? And you can see why that happens when you look at the typical way we're raised. You can understand where it's coming from, this disempowerment. But it is curious, isn't it, in us that we are unable to trust ourselves. And I always go back to the story about those bottles of water they sell that tell you how much to drink when you have a thirst system. I mean, that to me says it all. And I get why you might want one. If you're so disconnected from your thirst, you need to retrain yourself. But seriously, guys, we have these amazing bodies, and what we're doing, we're Googling how much water to drink.
I know. It's Matt bonkers. I was listening to the Chris Evans. I listened to Virgin Radio in the morning, and he's got quite a good morning thing. And they had somebody on as the first person last week. I nearly fell off my stool in the kitchen. He was saying that actually there's no one diet or one health regime that suits everybody. We should all be listening to ourselves. And there's this new thing like, customized approach. You're like, oh my gosh, really? So funny.
I do think, though, there is that thing, isn't there, about just coming back to yourself all the time, coming back to yourself. Actually, what did I want? I found a photo of myself at age 4 and made this. Actually, it nearly made me cry making this post this morning. And it said something like, the life that you're leading, is that the life that your 4-year-old self would have wanted? So I know that my 4-year-old self, the little tiny 4-year-old Heidi, who was incredibly quiet and shy, but always had this slight rebellious streak, she wouldn't have put up with this nonsense about overworking, pushing myself to burn out, not having time to laugh, not having time to go outside, particularly in the winter, when you're stuck inside all the time. All of that stuff that makes me happy, that makes me me, that keeps me sane, that is my life, that 4-year-old Heidi wouldn't have put up with this kind of, or she wouldn't have expected the adult version. I as a 4-year-old, you don't have any choice, and you have this dream. One day I'll be a grown-up and I'll get to have my own home with my own rules. And what happens? We never reach that promised land, do we? We grow up and we instigate the most appalling rules, which are often stricter for ourselves than they are for anybody else.
Yes, and unkinder, as you've often said to me, so unkind.
So harsh.
Yes.
Or as you would say, McBashy. And I love the way you describe that part of yourself that you're now able to laugh at and say, that's not for me. That's too bashy.
Yes.
I love the way you describe that.
Yes, McBashy of Bashington. In Bashingville, yes, absolutely. And what I've also found valuable is by having this new approach to overwhelm is that because it creates a gap, and in order for me to be able to decide how I want to deal with something or listen to something or talk to myself, whatever, it also has beginning, because I'm getting more practiced at it now, I'm beginning to get more space where other people are concerned as well. Ooh. So not just listening to respond, because we often think, oh no, you've got to, and you almost have what you're going to say before you even, but actually listening to be understood, and giving people that space. And actually it's a much more kind way to yourself as well as the other person when you're communicating. Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. Yeah, and I can definitely resonate with that, because I've noticed that not all the time, I can still be feisty Heidi, but at times, and I love it when I manage that I love the way you've described that. And I think what you're referring to is, because obviously this always happens with podcasts. We talk about things before we press record, and then we have to bring them back into the conversation in a way that makes sense, don't we? So what you're talking about, what we were discussing just before we pressed record, was the idea that neutral noticing provides space.
Yes.
And you're referring to it in terms of being able to react rather than respond to your own in your own action, but also in reaction to somebody else's conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I think we were also talking about it in terms of what you were talking about, how you felt after a while of stomping around the fields, chanting these positive affirmations. Do you want to just talk about that? Because I found that really interesting. It's really got me thinking, and I think it might get other people thinking, and I love to get people thinking.
Oh, so sorry, after I was stomping around the fields, what?
So you said before, we were talking about how neutral noticing provides this space between negative and positive.
Oh, yes.
Affirmations.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the things that we learned were, during learning coaching and going to these events, you learn that you're busy in your head. You're obviously in a crazy eight. You're going to, oh, woe is me. Oh, I'm angry. I'm depressed. I'm angry. Or, you just got this chatter in your head. Yeah. Insane. And so obviously what they would say, or that previously we'd learned, and which is all very valuable, that in order to change, you've got to change your language, and you've got to change your state, your physiology, and you've got to change what you focus on. But you almost like switch. It's like a hard switch, and you go bang, and then you go jump around madly. You got to chant all these positive things in your head, and you've got to focus on, living on an island and having pina coladas and it's all very manic.
Right. It's that high energy, isn't it?
Yes, there's no release from the manicness. You go from, very depressed and very upset and very, hot and angry or depressed or sad. But then you almost go to this, it flips the other way. And actually, that's not a very satisfying or fulfilling way to be. I found it. And I think the technique of neutral noticing and honestly, you don't get it right much to begin with. It takes a lot of practice, and I don't do it all the time. But what I have found is that it's now increasingly, I feel like the master of my own mind more, and I feel that there's a nice gap, like this lovely air in between how I feel, and which has given me the choice then to react differently. It's like now, we all have those things that trigger us. You're talking about the dishwasher on your last podcast that I listened to, and how stacking the dishwasher can almost become quite touchy. but I found now with things that I get triggered by, like fluff from the tumble dryer.
Yeah.
Phil likes to take it off and leave it on the top rather than put it in the bin. So it's a nice little pile of fluff for someone else to put in the bin. Whereas before it would be like the flash of anger, the red mist. And now I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. Look, and you almost can step back and find it and go, my word, that's an interesting way to and actually find myself slightly amusing. So it's, that's what I
love that. I love the way you just said you feel like the master of your mind, because that, to me, that's it. Our human minds are just, at best, they're naggy. At worst, they're unbearably annoying. They just, the doom, and with compassion, love, thank you, mind, but not everything's an emergency. It's this constant fake emergency, isn't it? Fake emergency, fake emergency, fake emergency. High alert state, high alert. Oh, and that, as I'm doing that with my hands, it's like, that's what you were doing about the states, the positive and the negative.
They can be equally as manic, can't they?
Yeah. So I find that fascinating. I also have to pick you up on the neutral noticing. I don't always get it right.
I'm
going to pick you up on that.
I'm going to have to get slapped for that one. Yeah, no, absolutely. We don't do shoulds or oughts, no. But I just think it was, for me, and that was that. It was when I can't remember what you said to me once we were chatting, and almost I could feel that you choking up. But it is the realization that actually we are all perfect as we are, and we are just a work in progress. And I absolutely, that still makes the hairs on my arm stand up, because we are.
Just got mine as well. You saying it, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. But also that neutral noticing, you can't get it wrong. So I'm quite interested in what you mean by you don't always get it right, because I think this is worth exploring, because I know you won't be the only person that I've talked this to who feels the same way. So just, can we unpick that? Because I think that might be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Unpick away. It's funny, isn't it? I think that I don't, because it is such a nice way, an easier way, a more fulfilling, expansive way to respond. I think when Judgy McJudge of Judgington gets involved with Bashy McBashy of Bashington, I afterwards you think, didn't really need to do that. So I think rather than being judgmental of it, and that came out wrong, but I think it is sometimes you go, I think there might have been a better way to. I think there would have been a better way. Actually,
I guess what you're saying is your neutral noticing isn't always as neutral as you'd like it to be.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's when it's worth upping it a level. I always think there's layer upon layer. You can kind of like pan out from above, can't you? And you can go, I'm now judging my neutral noticing. And then you can neutrally notice your neutral noticing. So you just get better and better at. And then there comes, you're right, there comes more space, more expansiveness, and more laughter, because it is funny, isn't it? We're so harsh on ourselves. And I also love that actually you've now invented another beautiful description of our minds, McJudgy of Judgington. I actually am thinking, do we know any cartoonists? Because we need to get McBashy and McJudgy out there into the world. Yeah.
Oh, you need to, yes.
There's got to be somebody
out there who's great at drawing. Yeah.
I can make something up, but I don't think it's recognizable.
They've got to wear hats, haven't they? I see them both with hats.
McBashy's got, I think McBashy might have a hammer.
Yes.
A little top hat and a little like that angry face.
Yes, and a moustache, like a harsh moustache.
And I guess the judge could have like a wig on. And the other sort of hammer.
One of those gravel things.
Yeah.
Call them. Yes, gavels. Yes. Yes.
Brilliant.
Oh, dear.
Right, so these are your wonderful adventures in Overwhelm. Thank you so much for sharing that. Quite incredible. And I love that you have said so many kind things about working with me as well. I do so appreciate that. I always find it extraordinary, and I'm sure you're the same, that when you see somebody that you've worked with shining, it doesn't feel like, and it shouldn't feel like it's me. It feels like that's my work in the world. And to me, I watch my work in the world moving across the world, the neutral noticing, the 1 minute mark, anything. And it's like, it's just this joy. It is this expansiveness, that being able to do work that is deeply satisfying and meaningful, that uses our unique skills and perspectives, I think is such a joy. So first of all, thank you. But secondly, that I've just realized this beautiful segue into what you do now, because you help people move from feeling very overwhelmed and unsure about where they're going with their work into stepping into more meaningful work. So
yeah,
tell us how you do that and what it involves.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. So I've worked in IT and technology most of my career from the age of 23, so 5 years ago. I'm joking. I'm the same age as you, 53. So originally just placing people in jobs, but very quickly, when you work in that area, you start to appreciate why people are moving and what's going on in their lives. And so I became more and more interested in helping to get to the grips with why, and then looking to solve that problem, which is what led on to becoming a career coach and an advisor. So we work with individuals who are either having a challenge where they are and are having a huge overwhelm. It could be that something in their personal life is impacting work, but it's still manifesting itself at work, redundancy or looking for the next promotion. Or it might be a lovely idea, like they just want to progress up to the next level and they're not sure that their leadership skills are quite there and they need to work on them. And we help them basically move up level and just help them understand their options and coach them through it. And my business partner and husband Phil, he's ex IT program manager, so he's got the experience in how things work within tech companies as well as myself. And so we work together and do that. But we also work with companies, so we go in. Like there's a big insurance company we're talking to, and they are conscious, most organizations are, that the soft skills and the coping skills are the areas which are really, teams are suffering. It is, as you say, it's dealing with overwhelm. There's a lot of transformation in tech. Everything's moving so fast. There's no certainty.
Incredibly fast, yeah.
So, there's a lot. It's very hard to feel grounded and centered and in control. So if you can take control of your career and where it's going, despite what's going on around you, and have a clear goal, then obviously it's very helpful. And so that's what we do. And obviously have the farm here in Wales as well, and the holiday cottages. But I think our real passion is, like yourself, to help people's lives be better than they are. I mean, we've both been on the rough end of it. Phil went through redundancy and had a really crappy boss that made his life hell, and I worked for a small company that grew quite fast, and I was very in touch with the senior management team, part of the senior management team, and then that changed as the company grew, and that was tough to deal with. So we've sort of seen it from the inside out, and we feel that we've got the tools and knowledge now with our coaching skills to really help people.
I love that you're combining your unique experiences together. So it gives people different people to work with, but also that because you're both so committed to personal growth, that to me seems a very essential or very special part of what you do. Because I don't know about you, but I just remember my experience, obviously it's a long time ago, of career coaching or career advice at school was, what do you want to do? That's not how you spell it, Heidi. And that was it. So, and I'm hoping things have changed. From working in education, I'm not convinced that I've seen them to be much better, much more inspiring. Really, to have a job where you're going to feel at home, where you're going to feel challenged enough, where you're going to feel, but also settled enough. You need to know yourself, don't you? You need to know what you want and who you are. And that changes over time. So how do you help people identify the best route for them? How do you work with them?
Yeah, sure. So most organizations have, development structures for team members, but they're focused really from where the company is coming from and what the company goals are, and they'll help you as long as you run in line with where they want to go. But really, it's not very often that we stand back and we actually look at our values and our needs as individuals. What makes us sing? What do we have to be doing in order for work not to feel like work, or at least get in a zone where we're feeling we're being productive and making a difference. So really it starts with that. You've got to understand, we talk with people and go through some exercises and conversations that help make that clear. And then once I understand where that is, and we can see if it's dealing with an issue, then it's quite often then easier to see why that's coming up, and then discuss ways of mitigating those issues, or moving past them, or around them, or confronting them and getting over it. And then once that's happened, if that can be a solution for some people, other people are looking just to formulate a career plan. So you can help them then plot out, their ultimate goal, and work back and look where the gaps are, whether it's personal skills, whether it's behavioral abilities, technical skills, and then they can sort of then take responsibility, and it takes that almost overwhelm away from people if they feel they're in charge and they're not at the whim of where their employer goes next. If they outsource or their position becomes uncertain, then they know that because what they want to do for their next job or their career goal is this, then they can go and do it elsewhere because they're building up, a strong foundation of skills.
No, I love that. That sounds really empowering. I really like that. The idea that you're not, however much you love the structure that you're working in, that you're not at the whims of any changes that are made from the top down. I think that's so valuable, because really within organizations, we want everyone to be at their best, don't we? We want everyone to feel happy, but not to feel squished, to not be completely dependent, to not be carried, but have some sort of agency, but to pull together. And I think that's actually incredibly difficult. You know, you put a bunch of humans together, it's always going to be interesting. So the more people know themselves and know what they want, and that they have agency outside of the structure, but that it's also worth, this is why they're in it at the moment, so they're going to give while they're in it, that's going to work. Hopefully that's going to be a win-win for both, isn't it? For both the company they're in at the moment, for future companies, and as you say, for that person to know their strengths, to value themselves.
Yes. And actually it's quite valuable. We've had a couple of people. There's a lady who's working for one of the big banks in London, and she was in this job and not happy. And we went through the whole values analysis and whatever. And she came up with a few things that she would love to be doing. And she actually went to her boss and said, look, this is why I'm not feeling fulfilled. I can see myself. I'd really love to be. And they went, oh my goodness, that's great. You know, you really know your own. That's fabulous. And yes, we will help you move towards that.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. So
that's
it can be
proactive.
Yes.
Yes. I like that. Yeah. Wow. So where can people find out more about you? How can they work with you?
Oh, bless you. Well, our website is www. I've always wanted to say that. careerprogressionprogram.co.uk. I can also be found on LinkedIn, Jennifer Wheeler. Yes, that's really the best ways to get hold of us. And we're also on Facebook, Career Progression.
I'll make sure that's all in the show notes for people.
Thank you.
People just wanted, so for people, I know that you do specialize in the tech industry. First of all, can you just expand on what kind of people that means? Because I'm not always convinced. Even though both my sons work in tech, I'm never entirely sure what that encompasses. So, but also whether you have any resources people could tap into, who aren't necessarily in that area but might want to approach you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks for asking about that. Yeah, we really picked on tech because, well, we both worked in tech, and you know, focusing on one area can be helpful, but we're not restricted to that by any means. So, is anybody really that's working that is feeling stuck or wants to accelerate, you know, wants to either put some more fuel in the tank or get over a hump, you know, we can help. So one of the ladies that I'm working with at the moment, she's in senior management within NHS, so she's not in tech, but she's in management. It's really because it's the world that I came from. We also have a recruitment business firm that works in the tech market, which is why it just dovetailed really nicely, because most of our audience it is in the tech industry, so that's why we were. But no, we're not restricted to that. We do have one tool which isn't specific to tech on our website that might be helpful to people. So if they're not sure about, they want to get clear on what they want to do and they're not sure about where they are and what they want to do, we've got a free download on our website, which is called the Career Clarity Guide. And it's a 20-minute exercise, but it for starters, it just starts you thinking about things, and it looks at what you love, what you're not so great at, what's, you know, where you resonate, what resonates with you, what doesn't. And it's the questions that help open that up. So that can be found as a free download on our website.
Oh, that sounds really good. That's great. Thank you for that. And also, just when we're talking tech, I think programmers, and then you've got hardware, software engineers,
project managers, program managers. You've got all the user experience people, you've got all the digital people, so it could be, you know, building websites, even digital marketing people, anyone that really is involved in, business analysts, project managers, head of development, head of department, CTOs, CIOs. So anyone that's involved in either, you know, building technology or looking after it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. Because I I've noticed an increasing number of opportunities within tech startups, but the ones I know are finding it quite difficult to recruit from the tech industry. So I think it's really good that you're out there doing this work, because I'm sure there's people who are lost in the wrong job, and there's some other jobs there for them, and that once they can identify who they are and what they really want at this point in their life, it must be a real joy for you to see somebody move from that overwhelmed, what am I doing, I feel really lost, and that loss of confidence. What's that transformation like when you help somebody kind of?
I think the most joyful thing for me is because we know tech inside out, and the different, not inside out, but the majority of it, inside out's not a good word, but we know sort of a lot of the different career opportunities. If you can take someone that's having a really horrid time in one area and say, look, this career path, maybe through business analysis or working more closely with the clients as account managers, or or client success people, and help people move to roles which they find more fulfilling. It's a lovely feeling. I think all of us as human beings, we love to be able to help people, don't we? The majority of us do, and I think it's just lovely to be able to see people who actually end up wanting to go to work, and enjoying it and seeing it as a really fulfilling and as well as successful. Because obviously if we're doing something we enjoy, then we normally become more successful. And if we're more successful, then we tend to earn more money, and which gives us more choices. And then it just opens up your life choices open up, because everything just works better.
It does. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. So
thank you so much for inviting me.
Can I ask you just the one last thing? What's your top tip for my listeners?
Well, I would say I love the quote from you, which is, the top tip is to remember that you are perfect the way you are, and you are also a work in progress. And I think that made me well up when I first heard it. When you're in overwhelm, actually trying to believe that is quite something. Definitely sack Bashy McBashy of Bashington. He's got to go in the bin. And also, do take action if you are in a place that's horrid. Sometimes you feel like you've got the lowest energy at that time to do anything about it, but any small step you can take to make yourself feel better, it's a good thing to do.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such an absolute delight to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for inviting me on and for sharing your incredible knowledge. You're a very amazing lady. So thank you.
Thank you. Hello, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. It's so good to have you here with me. Just a quick reminder about the upcoming masterclass called the Time for You Masterclass. It's at heidimark.co.uk/time for you. And I'll also put the link in the show notes. I'd love to see you there.